Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday. And today it's a special Gigi show. We've got Gillian, and then we've got, whoop, there we are. We've got G in the house today. And I love G because G is like my buddy. So when she comes on, it's always a fun time. So before we get stuck in with our topic today, G, can you go ahead and just tell everybody who you are and what you do? And then we'll jump in with our topic for today.
Absolutely. Gillian, I'm just so happy to be here. I mean, I'm giddy, pleased as punch, all that good stuff. So for those of you who don't know this gal with the crazy long name, I'm Gehan Haridy-Ardanowski. I go by G or GG for short, for obvious reasons. And I'm a human resources consultant, currently seeking full-time employment. And on the side, I have my own LLC, Golden Synergy Touch. And I do a bunch of different things, recruitment and content creation, helping others with their own brands as well. So just here to help encourage this strengths piece along and have a fabulous discussion today. So
awesome. Awesome. So that's great. We will get stuck right in. So we're talking about today using your strengths to boost your brand. And strengths, we're not talking about getting to the gym and using like weights or anything fun like that. We'd send Ella Orr your way if we were doing that, because she does some awesome stuff at the gym. But we're talking today about our strengths, as in CliftonStrengths, and you're YouMap certified. So you're coming to us with a lot of different things, but we wanted to focus specifically on using your strengths to boost your brand, and think about your brand on LinkedIn. And gee, this is applicable today. This conversation is applicable to pretty much everybody on LinkedIn. It doesn't matter if you're a job seeker, a business builder, you could be a recruiter, helping people find jobs. You could be somebody who's, I don't know, retired, and you're trying to, be an author, write a book, and trying to figure out your why in life, your second act in life. I think we're kind of appealing to everybody in the house today. Are we not, G?
you bet. And, it all goes back to two words I'm going to use that have probably been overused, but I'm going to use authenticity. That's number one, but there's merit to it. And I'll share in a second with that, but also our uniqueness in general, because I think, and again, this may be challenged by some people out there, but the end of the day, when we come to LinkedIn or any social media platform, all we want is to be seen. We want our message to be heard. And what benefit is there if all we're doing is mimicking someone else's brand, image, verbiage for that matter? And knowing ourselves and what we're good at, and really in the end, kind of not what we're so hot at, really helps lean us in the direction that we're meant to be, and to share that message with that authenticity and in our unique, special way.
I love that. I love that, because I think if you really don't understand who you are, and you don't go introspective first and really nail down what is it that resonates for you, what are your strengths, let's avoid the weaknesses and just be forward focused. I just told you, Tony Robbins says, where focus goes, energy flows. So you want to look at the things that you do well, not all the yuck stuff we don't. And the thing is that if you approach LinkedIn and you don't have that figured out yet, then like you said, you're going to be like, oh, what are they posting? What are they doing? Oh, I'll start doing this. And you might find that kind of content, that's not your strength. You're not very creative, or you're not very artistic, or you're not very colorful, and you struggle. And maybe text posts would have been your jam, but you saw all these people doing PDF sliders, or you saw all these people doing videos. And like, even with videos, I'll tell you, there's some people that might not be their strength, is to sort of be on camera, but there are other ways you can do video as well. So we won't go down there, but so okay, let's talk about the different things. So Cliff Strength Finder, and then there's YouMap, and there's so many different other ones. But which one should we focus on today, G? The Cliff Finder?
So yes.
Am I saying it wrong? It's
I I had a
Cliff
Cliff
Finder.
Bar earlier, but no, it's CliftonStrengths. So, okay, to clear something up, Strengths Finder rebranded years ago. I want to say about 7 years or so ago. So you might know it better as Strengths Finder. That's how
Okay.
I was introduced to it many moons ago. It's now called CliftonStrengths. I did a poll not too long ago in terms of what resonates most with you, audience. Would you gravitate more to this material if you knew it as CliftonStrengths, if you knew it as Strengths, if you knew it as Strengths Finder? You don't care, period. I think those are my 4 options. The fourth one being who cares? I don't know what it is anyway type thing. And yeah, however you say it, it's our strengths. And also known, and I share this a lot in content, our quote unquote top 5. There are 34 strengths or talent themes. And do you want me to briefly touch on what the assessment is and how this works?
Sure. Yeah, give us a general rundown.
Because I know all of you out there who are not familiar are so curious to know more. It's an incredible tool, and I have my own story. I don't even know if I'll get a chance to share too much of it, but the reason why I'm so passionate about this topic is because it literally caused me to pivot from applying to certain roles many, many years ago after I found out about it. But what it is, CliftonStrengths, aka Strengths Finder, it's about 35 to 45-minute assessment of 177 questions. I know it sounds like a lot. Flows like no tomorrow, quick and easy to do. And what you do is you take this assessment, and the outcome result of it will be your top 5 of those aforementioned 34 themes or strengths. And those are the top 5 that you focus on going forward. Just to name a few. I mean, for example, I know Gillian just recently retook hers. I recently retook mine a year ago. And for those of you who have taken it before and want to retake it, but aren't sure how that works exactly, even if your top 5 shift, it never means that your original top 5 are ever far from the top. So what it tells you, though, is really who you are at the core and what you're meant to do and what your uniqueness will mean to so many others once you realize what that is.
I love that. I love that. So it was funny. We were talking just before we started today that when you do the assessment and you get your top 5, you don't get the whole 34. You get your top 5. But I said to you, in all honesty, I think that's actually a good thing, because if I got all 34, I would be in overwhelm, because I would say, I can't process this information. It's too much, right? Because the human mind, what did they say? Less than 7, where we go into overwhelm. We're probably down to like 2, like our brains are getting smaller and smaller, our focus. But I said, if I saw the whole 34, you know where I'd look? I'd look to see what was my bottom 5 strengths, because those would be my weaknesses. And that's probably the worst thing that I could do, is to focus on what I'm not good at, because where focus goes, energy flows. So it's like, I don't need to know that I'm not analytical. I'm not your spreadsheet gal. I'm not going to teach you easy peasy Excel. That's not doing it. Math, it's like, that is not my jam. But it was no surprise to me that it was actually a surprise to me that I changed, because I thought, I'm sure I'm the same. No, I wasn't. I got 2 out of the original 5 again. One, and my top one was learner, which I'm the Google goddess. I learn everything. That's the core of what I do. I learn and then I teach. So that's how I use that. And that's part of my brand, right? Video easy peasy. So I'm kind of doing it, aren't I, G?
You absolutely are. And, that's the wonderful thing about strengths. For the most part, it's going to tell you what you already know about yourself. Interestingly enough, back to that analytical piece, and I was sharing this with you just before we went on air. So you and I, Gillian, are very, very blessed. We have this amazing network of some really strong analytical people who post content on this all day long. They focus on that. And they share their infinite wisdom. I mean, I could name names. I'm sure you could too. But my point is, people will not come to me ever for analytics. Now, what they will do though, and this is the great thing is, so when people look at my content, for example, I'm just using myself as a really super quick example to this because on a side note, analytical is now officially my number 34. The first time I took my strengths back in 2013. Yeah. So at the bottom, folks, when I first took it many years ago, after leaving a financial analyst role, that I struggled in for a really long time. I learned about strengths the day I was actually fired from or let go, however you want to look at it, from a role I'd been really just mentally beating myself up about. And I later learned that analytical was right there at the bottom of the list. And so when people think of me, they don't think of analytical, they think of positive, or they think of creative or inspirational or whatever words, may come to mind and things I've heard. Bless all of you, by the way, for the support. But that's all part of my brand. It is not analytical, or it is not, G's going to write all on text content with no emojis, because not having emojis is not part of my brand. Not having Bitmoji pop up from time to time, that's not part of my brand. And Gillian, I know you have a really strong argument for your Bitmo as well when it comes to marketing yourself and your brand, and how when you even are seeking out clients, if clients aren't, and I'm paraphrasing here, so please feel free to chime in, but this really sticks out. And you've shared this before in part, is that, if clients or folks don't necessarily gravitate toward that, or they think, oh my gosh, it's cartoon, it's this or that, that may be a deciding factor in whether or not they'll be your people. If they don't like that about you, which is you, they may not be your people. So go toward your people is my point. And it's in all things. It's with content creation and just, putting your unique self out there the best way you can. So
I love it. I love it. And I could see that by knowing what your strengths are, first of all, it really will help you figure out, are you a round peg trying to fit into a square hole? That maybe a job that you've had, if you said, why did that job not work? Why did that company not work? Why did that client not work? Because we all have those where you're just like, why is this not a good match? It could be not a good match because you're not using your strengths in that particular situation.
Absolutely. And in my financial analyst role, two things against me, and mind you, to back up just for a moment, historically, I've had an HR recruitment background for many, many years. Even while I was going to school, I did temp work with people and HR and practices and all this stuff. And then one day I had an opportunity and I took on a financial analyst role with Pricewaterhouse, amazing firm. Nothing at all against, obviously my previous employer, God love it. It's made for great storytelling since, but I was in a role where I didn't get to show my best self, but didn't know it at the time. And that's why in encouraging people to really understand what you are good and not so good at, it really is paramount in making good decisions for yourself and not waking up nervous and uncomfortable about what is the day going to bring and how am I going to screw up. I mean, it's bad when you go into performance reviews anticipating what you're going to get, already knowing that it's not going to end well. And no one should feel that way. And again, it's this whole strengths piece is part of your brand. It's in everything. It's how you show up, in real life, not just on LinkedIn, but it's also, when people see you, great example. My previous number one was woo. So woo for, and I'm not talking woo woo people. I know we use that term
like crystals and meditating. And
I struggled with that one for years. So this was back in 2013. I had woo as my number one.
So what is woo? Just back up for a second. Tell us what woo is.
It's winning others over. Woo, W-O-O.
Oh.
And to me, so I, of course, look at it as a big, or at the time I should say, I looked at it as a big flaw. Whereas people who were more in tune with strengths thought I was crazy to even think that it was a negative. It's, that's your greatest strength. That's your biggest thing. It's more concierge. It's more engagement with people. It's winning others over immediately. Some people are, have that immediate gravitation toward people and find it easy to talk to them. Others don't. And I'm not a full raging extrovert, by the way, but I do enjoy engaging with people and wanting others to, wanting them to connect with others. And that's my strong suit. It always has been. But for years, I saw it as a weakness until finally one day I had a great aha moment. And then I want to say a year or two after that, which was a year ago, I retook strengths, and immediately my woo disappeared from my top 5.
Oh.
And I took the test on a Sunday morning. So what happened was I had a technical glitch. Long story short, I had to wait 24 hours until Gallup in Omaha opened to get tech support on the phone. And for 24 hours, because I had downloaded all 34, but they weren't pulling for some reason. And I sat there with my new top 5, which number 1 is my responsibility, because I wanted to make sure that I communicated this correctly to people, because that's my thing now. But where's woo? That is, it ultimately fell to my number 6, by the way, but it was there. So it never fell very far. I just hadn't had to work as hard over the past few years to use that strength. So again, these are meant to be seen as a positive. I could go on and on about this forever, Gillian. You can shut me up.
Well, and I love this. I love this because essentially you're saying sometimes you could do these tests and you could say, here's my top 5, but maybe I don't know, is this true? So going to your network, going to your peeps, they were to say, yes, that is you.
Yeah. And I know of one person, for example, a recruiter who, her top 4 were basically influencing themes. And top of her top 5, 4 of them were influencing themes. And there's 4 domains, if you will, and 4 of them fell into one domain. And that told me that not only is she a born recruiter, like she's in her space, passionate about what she does, executes. It shines in all of her content. By the way, I'm just going to say it. Anna Morgan, that one's for you. So Anna Morgan, if you're catching this, you have the best brand, one of the best brands there is. And, she's just phenomenal in her space and just amazing at what she does. And it shines and shows because of that. But those are her strengths, playing into, her just into her life and showing up as her best self. So I love it.
I love this. I love this. So would you recommend that if you know what your top 5 is that something you should put on your profile?
Absolutely. And one thing that I do with mine, and please feel free to go out and take a look at it as an example. So once you know your top 5, and it's super easy to do. So with a strengths assessment, again, you go to Gallup, you pay $20. I'm happy to walk any of you listening to this, catching it, if you're really interested, or if you just want to have a brief chat on this, happy to do that. But it's super easy. If you go to gallup.com, there's a way, and I don't have the immediate link, not in front of me, but if you go to gallup.com, or if you Google CliftonStrengths,
we'll put it in later. We'll put it in the comments later.
It's going to, yes, it'll take you right there for $20. It literally, like if you're struggling, especially for job seekers, it's a great way to sell yourself in an interview. I can tell you, as a job seeker, for example, in the past, I've gone into interviews and, that strengths and weaknesses question, right? Very, very quick to say, hey, my biggest strength is XYZ. And oh, by the way, what are some of my challenges? Well, I'm not, there are areas of improvement. And here's an example of that, which for me is analytical. And hey, we can all improve upon something. And here's what I've done to try to combat that. Knowing, though, that not every role out there is going to be meant for me. So I'm not meant to be in a spreadsheet driven role or a numbers crunching role. But I know that. And I'm way ahead of the game in knowing that. So, but
you can still fill out the timesheet. You could still send the bill at the end of the week, type of thing.
Absolutely. And, I put in, I'm sorry, Gillian, back to your question though, about putting that in your profile. It is so awesome to do. Like, I love having them in mind, and I see other people putting their top 5 strengths in their profile. I take it a step further and I give a quick sentence as to what that actually means for the reader, for the prospective client, for the prospective employer, and what that means for me. And again, there's a lot of education out there, information. Happy to chat on this with anyone, but really want to emphasize that this, again, you take an assessment and it can literally be life-changing, especially if you're struggling on some of these things.
I love it. I love it. So shall we hop in? We don't have Jeff Young here today. I don't know how we'll survive. Hi, Jeff. We're
Yeah.
thinking of you. We're thinking he's in Oshkosh, Bagosh or somewhere. He's like doing something. Okay, so we have Gabe. Hey, he's filling in for Jeff with the first comment of the day. Hey,
Hey,
Gabe,
Gabe.
wonderful to see you. Wonderful to see you. We have Yemi. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, Gillian and G. Woohoo.
Yolanda's
We have
awesome.
good evening from Finland. Oh, wow. We're going global today, G. This is amazing. Hello, G and G. I love it. I told you we are the G and G show. I love it. I love it. Hello from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Woohoo. One of my fellow Canadian peeps in the house. I love it. I love it. Hello from Detroit. Hello from Detroit. Inquiring minds want to know, G. He's so funny. He's so funny. Good evening from the UK. I love it. I love when everybody just comes from all over the world. It's wonderful. Greetings from Dobbs Ferries, New York. It's a bit cooler here today. Well, thank goodness for that. That's like, are you getting out of the swelter, G? Because I know you've been saying Texas has been like,
I'm done complaining. You know what? I think we had a sprinkle of rain here in my Frisco area last week at some point. I'm done. But yeah, it's still sweltering. It's still hot. But
Woo! We
hey,
got we got we
Marsha.
got we got them coming in from India today, and we know it's the middle of the night for her. So that's amazing that she's
Mwah.
doing this. Yay! We love you. Hi.
Yay.
Woohoo! Coming in. Great to see you both. I'm always learning from you both. And I bet you he's, based on what Felipe is doing in his job, I bet this is really applicable to what he does too. So that would be interesting to know. He's coming on my show soon too. Such
Oh,
a
is
good
he?
point,
Oh,
Gillian.
yeah, he's awesome. He's amazing.
Such a good point, Gillian, to know the bottom 5 strengths. That's what's to avoid. Yeah, I don't even want to know. It's like I don't want to know anymore. I think that once I really could own my 5 and I really understand it, I think then I would be ready to start going deeper. Is that true? That like take it a bit at a time, integrate the top 5. How can I use this? I personally, whether you're a business builder or a job seeker, I'd take my top 5 strengths and then I'd say, how could I find a personal story to illustrate these strengths? So for me, like being, a learner, that was like my number one thing. Well, that's why I'm the Google goddess. That's why I love to Google things. I taught Google Ninja courses, I've worked in libraries and I'm always trying to find the answers. So that, I think when we own our stories, I think those are excellent for job interviews. And then for business people, those are excellent for videos to market your why of why you're doing your business. What do you think, G?
Oh, absolutely. And really quick, and by the way, I'm going to throw something in there, just on screen. I do not get a dime for this, but there's someone I want to talk about really quickly. So when I first started exploring strengths back in 2013, 14, 15 timeframe, I met someone, her name is Jo Self, and she's a Gallup trained coach. So she's certified in strengths. And she recently wrote a book. And what she did with this book, it's called Practical Strengths. It's like $10 on Amazon. I'm just going to hold it up really quick. But to talk about this in terms of applicable use and how these strengths have come into play. Really want to mention this book for a second because you brought it up. And she took the 34 talent themes and she knows 34 people and included herself in one of them to talk about their number 1 and about how that helped them in the job search, in their careers. It's slick. I'm not even joking. Like I said, $10 on Amazon. Jo Self, folks, connect with her and tell her G sent you. Not even joking. This book takes each strength and there's a real life example. It's literally a quick snapshot. It gives you great information on how you can take this little 1 page of someone's experience. And then also there's some questions you can ask yourself and then what you can do with that going forward. And I'm in there too. I'm under number 1 responsibility. So if you scroll,
you're in the book?
I'm in the book. Yeah.
Cool.
So, which was really cool. And, I love this book. And even if I weren't in the book, I would really encourage people. There's also another, she has a series of these books, but this one, especially as a job seeker and a recruiter, I appreciate this topic because so many times there are people who are struggling with how to brand themselves, what to say, not to say. And instead of leaning into what they could be and should be, they're trying to do something different and it just doesn't work. So
Sure. Sure. Because I think a lot of times, especially with job hunting, is that you feel, what's the right answer? What's the answer they're looking for? And it's like you're playing hot or colder. That kids game, hot or colder, where in reality, you should always look at, this is me saying, who knows what I know. But anyways, it me saying that if you're applying for a job, if you can't be the real you in that interview, the job's not a good fit. It's like if you have to, make up stuff and you can't talk about what you really think about, my talents, my strengths, my this, my that. If I'm just parroting what I think they want to hear, I'd probably get that job and I'd find that I'm that round peg in the square hole again. So I think at the end of the day, part of our brand is being the you. It goes back to that authenticity. Don't be, we can't just look at somebody and say, oh, wow, I think I'll be like her. She has 100 million followers on LinkedIn. And if I could have a video where I'm walking by a pool and flicking my hair, that's not going to work for me. Yeah.
You have
I
fabulous
fall in the
hair and I
pool.
do too. We have
I
good hair,
fall in
Gillian,
the
Whitney.
pool.
You and I both. We just need to rock it in our own special way because we're unique, right?
That's right.
Totally
That's
joking.
right. That's right. Okay. Back to my comments. Okay. So there we go. Okay. Good question, Jude. Okay. I'm a big fan. See, I knew it. He's a big
Not
fan.
shocked.
I knew he's a
Felipe's
big fan.
awesome.
Woohoo.
Awesome.
How do we get to take the Strength Finder assessment? So G said, go to Gallup and you're going to put the link in afterwards specifically. So just circle back and we'll get the link in. Oh, somebody's ahead of us. Woohoo. I don't know who that is, but you're an angel. So thank you for doing that. Okay. I've done a few of these sort of tests, amazingly insightful, 16 personalities. I love the 16 personalities too. How the world sees you, and most recently 5 voices. Oh, I don't know that one. Have been amazingly accurate and insightful, very liberating to know where you naturally fit and excel. Trying to be someone you're not can only go so far and results in pain. Wow, that's insightful. Results in pain, because that is true when you're not being able to be you. Now, the interesting thing about the 16 personalities, because I put that on my LinkedIn profile, I'm a INFJ.
Yes.
But that's me at my core, which is just part of me, doesn't necessarily mean my talents. And I think that the 16 personalities doesn't necessarily change, but obviously your strengths do, because I just redid I thought I was done for life. And you said, when did you take your test? And I said, oh, I don't know, 3 years ago. And then I sent you my test and you went, it was 8. It was 8. It had changed. The reason I think it changed is because I was different 8 years ago. I was in a different part of my career. I was coming out of like raising children and going into my second act of like, okay, now I'm going to be a businesswoman and I'm no longer, this. I was never a stay-at-home mom because I don't clean or, whatever. But sorry, every stay-at-home mom is now going to come at me with pitchforks. But I was basically, I always worked, even when I was homeschooling my kids. I always worked from home, but it was a different kind of work. And then I was a different person when I took the test 8 years ago than I am today. And I think that gives the focus.
They say to take it if, every few years or after a major life or a series of major life altering events. But I mean, there's people out there, there's no rhyme or reason or rule to it, really. I mean, I took mine after, 8 years, actually. So I took mine about a year and a half.
Magic 8.
But what was really interesting though, when that woo fell out, I thought, okay, something I hated for many, many years about myself, which was really my number one strength, which I struggled with, finally loved it and thought, okay, I'm going to live in it and embrace it. And then when I retook it, it fell.
Mm,
And part of that too,
mm.
just a quick FYI, if you do retake yours and you're questioning the shift, it's only because, to your point, you changed as a person and you don't lean on the same things, or might not, I should say, that you leaned on years ago. Like for
Right.
example, like my woo probably slipped because during COVID, I'm not out there necessarily, trying to engage with the masses. It's more like, okay, let's just do whatever we need to do online and get by, and that's it. Versus really working a room or working whatever else we need to.
Right.
So I think that's a very high level, rationale, but you get my point, and you're spot
So,
on with that.
yeah. So let me just one final challenge.
Please.
This should be in high school. Like to me, I remember being in high school and kind of going, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to go to university. What should I take? And, I'm doing all these silly career aptitude tests that were just ridiculous for me, telling me, what I should be in terms of an occupation, which were not a realistic fit at the time. And if I kind of went back in my time machine, I would want to know this in grade 12 so that I could be going into college knowing what are my strengths as opposed to, I think I'll get a liberal arts degree. I went and got a psychology degree. Whether that was a good fit for me or not, I don't know.
We
But
could talk about all that all day long. Oh, another
but
topic.
don't you think this is something that if you got a teenager in your house, go and do this test with them. Is there
You
any special thing for kids?
Absolutely. So and if you visit my profile, there's some information under my experience on something called YouMap, and
Mm,
YouMap basically takes your strength. So first and foremost, just to back it up for a second, do your strengths. Strengths is important. Anybody can take it. Go to Gallup. And again, I'm happy to talk more offline with anybody who's more interested in that. But if you take that a step beyond with UMAP, that's a process that actually just was initiated, I want to say now 2018 timeframe by Kristen Sherry. And
mm,
Kristen Sherry created UMAP for this very specific purpose. And not only is it amazing for adults, but it's amazing for your teens, your young adults, students who are
mm.
transitioning in college, don't know what to do. Takes your strengths and it maps out a course of action. It's based on your skills, your values, your personality, using strengths as the foundation of all of that, and it builds you out to point you in the direction that you need to be in. So especially for people who are at that point now in their careers where they say, I don't really know what I want to do. I'm not quite sure. I kind of know what I'm good at, not really. I highly advise, if nothing else, take strengths, but then to take it a step further with this UMAP. And again,
I love it.
it's out there, and I'm not here to pitch, sell, or anything like that. But if you're curious on what to do with any of this information, just DM me, and I'm happy
I
to
love it.
clarify it. But it's energizing, empowering, Jillian, and that's what I really want
With
people
the
to leave
capital
with.
E.
You
With a
know,
capital E. Okay, so, oh my goodness, we have hit our 30-minute mark. It is so easy to do. Yeah, we've never actually stalled and run, "Okay, well, we have nothing else to say. We're at the 15-minute mark." We always go to the end. So, G, why don't you give us the final takeaway? And of course, anybody who wants to connect with G afterwards, please send her a lovely note and just say, I saw you on the live with Gillian, and that will let you slip into her life. So that will, she does like that introduction, folks. So G, what's some final sort of words of wisdom for us that you want to leave us with today?
You know, honestly, it really does start with knowing yourself. And at some point, we all want to, like I said earlier, we all want to be seen. We all want to be heard. We all have a message. And at times we're afraid to really share our true selves, right? Well, how can we do that if we don't know parts of that? And this is one way to do a deeper dive into that and to share it. Like there's no better, easier piece of content to share with the masses than, oh my gosh, I took my CliftonStrengths. These are my top 5. What are yours? Start
Mm,
a discussion with something that
I love
basic.
that.
If you don't know anything about content creation, if you're scared to death of it, that's a great way to get started. Just take your strengths and share. your findings and, tell us, what that means to you and how you've used it if you want to take it a step further from there. So
Wonderful. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you, G, for being here.
thank you for
A
having
delight.
me, Jillian. I
Always
could
a
talk to you about
delight.
this all day long.
Okay, we'll see you guys all next week. Bye.
Bye.